buttered rice. Buttered rice is one of my all-time favorite foods. Like if I could eat only one starch for the rest of my life, it definitely wouldn't be pasta, especially not motherfucking penne. It might be potatoes, but I actually think it would be rice. There is nothing more delicious to me than a bowl of salty buttered rice. But here's the thing, a great bowl of buttered rice, because there are so few ingredients, salt, rice, and butter, you have to know how to execute a great pot of rice in order to enjoy it to its fullest. And I'm gonna teach you how to nail your rice every single time. And then later, we're gonna talk about how you can zhuzh up your rice and add in other toppings if you feel like getting fancy. That's enough talking for now. Okay, today we are going to make a pot of long grain white rice. There are a few really crucial steps to it that I will walk you through. One is that you must measure. 2 is that you must rinse. 3 is that you must time. And 4 is that you must have a tight fitting lid. I think those are the most crucial elements, but we'll get into it. I have here 2 cups of long grain white rice. This is jasmine rice. You could also use basmati rice. They all have like a slightly different flavor, but this is a long grain rice. And I'm going to, step 1, rinse the shit out of it. Put it into a fine mesh strainer and go over to the sink. There's a few ways you can rinse rice. You could submerge it in a big bowl of cold water and swoosh it around. I don't find that necessary. What I do is just get some cold water running and I run it over the rice through a fine mesh strainer. Obviously a strainer that's finer than the rice so it doesn't fall through. And I'm gonna do this for about a minute. And this is rinsing off the starch. You'll see that it turns into like a milky liquid, and that's because there's starch on the outside of the rice that we must rinse off if we want really fluffy, singular grains. We're swirling and swooshing, and like I'm kind of using my hand to brush the starch away as I rinse it. Honestly, you can't over rinse your rice. You wanna see that the water runs clear underneath. So if you take a look at this stream of water, it shouldn't be milky or cloudy in any way, and this is looking pretty good to me. Then you wanna tap it really dry, because since a pot of rice is so contingent upon a ratio of rice and water, we wanna make sure that we tap off as much of that excess water here so that it doesn't throw off our measurement in the pot. Okay, so then here's where the measurement comes in. This was 2 cups dry, so it was 2 cups of these leveled. If you are not someone who has measuring cups, like say maybe you love a scale, for example. Whatever it is, just make sure that you're measuring, because willy-nilly throwing in, oh, there's a pinky amount extra water, like no, that's not precise. And rice is all about precise. Rice is precise. And then for every 1 cup of rice, I add 1 1/4 cups of cold water. So 2 cups of rice, I'm gonna add 2 1/2 cups of cold water. So there's 2, 2 1/2. And then for every cup, I do like a big pinch of salt. So that was 1 cup, 2 cups. Some people say that you should wait to season your rice until after it's been boiled and steamed and cooked. I say no. Introduce the salt here and now so that as the water is absorbing into the rice, the seasoning is getting into it, and that way it's not seasoned on the outside, but on the in. So you can choose, but I say add it. We're going over to the stove, and I'm going to turn it to high heat, which sounds a little kooky because you're probably like, that doesn't sound very gentle. But actually, what I want to do here is bring the water up to a boil as quickly as possible. I don't want the water spending a lot of time in this weird in-between state where it's not quite simmering or boiling. That will slow down and create an uneven pot of rice. So what we do is, we blast the heat underneath it, bring it up to a boil as quickly as possible, and as soon as we see it boil, we'll put the lid on and turn it down to as low as possible. This will take a couple minutes. Now that we feel like the edges are boiling, the lid goes on immediately and the burner gets set to low. If you don't have a tight fitting lid, you can always drape a towel over the pot and then place the lid on top, and that will just ensure that there's not excess steam escaping. So now that we are at a very low simmer, we immediately set a timer for 17 minutes. Time's up. Turn off the timer, turn off the heat. Don't remove the lid. Actually, do I want to say that? You can remove the lid here if you want to make sure that your water has been absorbed. Take a look and see if there is any water collecting still at the bottom. My bottom is dry. So now I'll put the lid immediately back on. We don't want a lot of the steam to escape. And I'm gonna let it rest for another 10 minutes with the lid on. 10 minutes is up. And then we reveal. You can see that just like from a first glance here, we've got lots of like nice individual grains. Do you see how these are like light, fluffy? They're not like clumped together. There's singularity in the grains here, which is what we're looking for. We're not gonna stop there because now we're going to add our butter. And that's what's gonna make this truly delicious. So this is a to taste type of thing. The first thing you wanna do is take a fork and just kind of fluff the rice gently with the fork to break it up a bit. Don't beat it up, you know, you don't wanna break any of the kernels. And then I'm just gonna start adding some unsalted butter. I do unsalted because I wanna be able to control how much salt I add later on. And then we're cutting it into pieces just so that it melts more quickly and evenly. You decide how much butter you want to put in your rice. I like to make sure that like every single grain is coated in butter so that when it goes into my mouth, it is like fatty and slippery and salty and buttery and delicious. Like if you're entertaining, you finish your pot of rice, get your butter in there and then just keep it warm. And then we gotta taste. It needs more butter. So we're gonna add more butter. You do want to add the butter like right after that 10-minute rest because you want the rice to still be warm enough to melt the butter. If you wait too long, you're gonna have a hard time. You want this rice to be salty. Like the joy of buttered rice is that it's salty. Always needs more salt. That is a perfect pot of buttered rice. You can stop there. You should stop there and just taste it because it's glorious. But then there's a million ways that you can zhuzh up a pot of rice. Everything in your pantry is like a potential ingredient add-in to your rice. You can add herbs, you can add seeds, you can add nuts, you can add other oils, acids, pickles. I'm gonna show you 3 of my favorite ways, but then you should open up your pantry and play around because it's basically a blank canvas for flavor. My 3 favorite kinds of rice: peanut rice, sesame rice, chili rice. Peanut rice. Why is it great? Because peanuts are delicious and nutty and they go great with butter. And as soon as the peanuts hit the hot rice, they start to kind of like let out their oil and their flavor. So if it smelled like butter popcorn before, now it smells like peanut butter toast. Okay, next up, chili rice. So I added a couple of tablespoons of chopped Calabrian chilies. You could use any chili oil, chili crisp, whatever spicy condiment you have. And then the zest of like half of a lemon. Stirred it all in. It is spicy and zesty and buttery and perfect. Sesame rice, toasted sesame oil. You don't need a lot of it. It's very, very powerful stuff. I probably put half a teaspoon in here. And then crushed toasted sesame seeds. I crush them in a mortar and pestle to like burst their insides because they're a lot more flavorful that way. And that way the rice will like really taste of sesame. They're not just a garnish. Mmm. Okay, this one's my favorite. I just decided. Mmm. Mmm. Meow. Right this way. Peanut rice. Yum. Chili rice. Yummy. Sesame rice. Yummiest. My favorite. This is 3 of infinity ways that you can zhuzh up a pot of rice. The reason that this was so easy, took me 3 minutes to mix and put in, is because I had a perfect pot of buttery rice to start with. And then just go hit the pantry. Live your lives. Who wants rice?